Welcome back! Did you know that within the Warriors of Chaos range for the old world, there are 4 incredible miniatures that have simply not aged? I say 4, technically 7. In fact, it might be a little bit more than that. Look, the fact is there are some designs that are just so good that they remain relevant. They remain as fresh and good as the day they were conceived, and these are those miniatures. We're going to start with the Warpfire Dragon, which for my money is one of the most perfect and well put together models that Games Workshop has ever put out into the world. It is absolutely quality from start to finish. The pose is fantastic. The texture on the skin is really, really nice. The head is nightmarish, but still recognisable. The wings, they haven't aged a day. They look absolutely fantastic. I love the significant but sensible amount of damage. It still looks capable of flight, but it definitely looks like it's been through a few fights. And the little growths on the arms and legs look absolutely fantastic. The use of the classic tactical rock to enhance the pose of this thing, in this instance, it just works so well. Having the tail wrapped round it, it being in that kind of either landing or just threatening pose works so well for the miniature, and it gives this really good predatory air to it. It looks like an absolute monster that could tear you apart, but it also looks unnatural, creepy, like there's something going on, there's something wrong with it, there's something not quite as it should be. Now of course that's enhanced by the fact that this is a dragon that eats warpstone, and as such gets a little bit sort of corrupted. You have these little clusters of crystals and stuff that grow out of the skin. It makes them a bit off, gives them a sort of tainted power. And just touching the ground and stuff can cause things around them to burn and die. It's pretty hardcore. If we take a look at some close-ups, you can clearly see how corrupted and messed up the head of this dragon is. That kind of stone-like texture over the top of the skull, where it's all uneven and cracked, looks absolutely fantastic. It also seems like it makes the horns a bit more jagged in a way. I'm not sure whether the growth pattern on the horns is symmetrical either. It might not be. It's kind of hard to tell. But again, looking down the back of it, you've got all these spines and stuff growing out, all these spikes, and they are definitely not symmetrical. They're sort of coming out of various different parts of the back, but not an even length and not equally spaced. Even things on the shoulders, you've got that cracked rock texture. It's just so good. When it comes to things like the teeth, it's maybe not as horrific as it could be compared to some other dragons within Games Workshop's range, but the fact that you've got this thing with a split open chest with rock and stone and crystal texture growing out of the skin, that to me is scarier than just having more big teeth. There's a lot of stuff out there with big teeth. There's not a lot of stuff out there that is a living creature that is consuming warpstone, that changes the fundamentals of its body and starts turning it into something that it didn't start out as. That, to me, that's scarier than big scary teeth. This is frankly an all-time great. When it comes to Games Workshop monsters, this is up there as I think one of the best ones they've ever made. And part of me really hopes that now we have the old world and we have fantasy back in a different form, that miniatures like this, they won't go away anymore. They're not in as much risk of being ditched because they now have support. They have something that they belong to from a fundamental level as opposed to being a tacked on thing for a different system, you know? I just love the Warpfire Dragon. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It is so good. Next up, we've got the gigantic Spawn of Chaos, which is horrible. It's so grim. I love it. He's got a big mouth coming out of his neck. The big, scythe talons are so weirdly placed on this model. But that, to me, just makes it way more creepy. It makes it more scary. They don't look particularly like they do very much because, well, they're sort of growing out of where maybe the shoulder blades might have been at some point. But I think that just adds to it. I think the fact that they look like these kind of stunted, awful wings that never quite turned into what they should be kind of makes it more horrifying than if they look like functional weapons. It almost looks like it's trying to be something majestic, but that has absolutely failed, because look at the rest of it. The mouth on the neck is absolutely horrific. It's really gross. The way that the head has got this long, two heads? One head? It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, if we go to the close-ups, it is technically one head, I think, but it's sort of split off into two faces, and one of the jaws is really mangled and hangs down super low. Got a really long tongue hanging out of one, but then on the other side of the face, or the other face on the side of the head, that tongue is like wrapped round. That big long strip of skin that goes between the two upper gums and teeth is really upsetting. Like, it's just not nice. It just doesn't look nice. Also, the fact that it seems to share that central eye between the two different faces. So you've got an eye in the middle, but that eye is like the other eye for the two faces, one on either side. It's just gross. Really, really gross. It is a true, proper monstrosity. Like, there's something in there that you can vaguely recognise. The overall anatomy is quite humanoid in a way. Like, it's not gone full kind of animal layout. You've still got recognisably human-like legs. The arms are still arms as opposed to, becoming another set of legs. The fingers are super long and distressing. It's just really hunched, grim. The texture is really gnarly on the skin. All those little gaps and holes. It's horrible. Like a properly horrible miniature in the best possible way, right? I mean, when you look at the close-ups, when you look at all of the gaps in the skin, I suppose there should be, what's that thing where you don't like seeing a bunch of holes everywhere? Is it trypophobia? Is that what it is? Because this model, there's a lot of that. Where the skin is worn away or it's torn, and then there's like that almost honeycomb texture underneath. Ugh. Horrible. Properly horrible. It also looks like it's developing another mouth on one of the legs. Or is it an eye? It's kind of hard to tell. Either way, distressing. Also, there's a finger. There's a finger just sort of hanging out there, like right by the servant's entrance. It's just not nice. But again, like the Warpfire Dragon, there is just something about this model that means it is aging beautifully. It doesn't look outdated. It doesn't look like it's lacking in anything. It's just a properly good monster design. It's so cool. We also have the Chimera. Now, admittedly, these last two I think are going to get maybe a bit of pushback, but I stand by them. The Chimera is a very, very fun model. The pose is perhaps a little off compared to something that we might see these days, but I think the overall composition of it is really, really good. I love the texture on the wings. That feels almost a little bit ahead of its time in a way. The different heads integrate really well with the rest of the body, and I've never bought this kit. I've never even seen this kit in the wild, to be honest, but from what I can tell, you do have a range of options for which of the three heads you want to put onto it. The pose might be a bit static. It might not be as dynamic as we might like to see from, like, newer models at least, but I think it still works. It looks like it's rearing up. It could either be taking off or about to pounce on someone. It's not terrible, And the overall shape of the body is really, really nice. Got a nice mix of kind of smooth skin, but also textured sections where you've got things like joints, and the claws look really good. The tail is nice too. That kind of odd, spiky fin thing that's going on down the back of it. I think there's a lot of character to this. And whilst it might be looking a little more dated than the other two, it's still just a very solid design. And with a little bit of creative basing, I reckon you can make the pose look a lot more dynamic than it does currently. Now, finally, and I think this is probably going to get a little bit of pushback, and that's totally fine, but these are a personal favourite. I can't not throw them in. The skin wolves. Now, these do, admittedly, they do look a bit more dated. That being said, these were also painted, I think, at a time when the overall approach to Games Workshop's painting stuff for their like promotional models or, store page model paint jobs, they've changed a lot over the years. They've changed a hell of a lot over the years. And I will say that quite a few of those older models, I feel like a good number of them, were they to be updated and repainted, they might look a bit less dated overall, because these are still solid models. I still think these hold up. The overall design of the models are really nice, especially the ones that are looking a bit more dynamic. The one that's kind of all fours sniffing around. That one has aged a bit worse than the other two, but the overall design is really, really nice. I love how lanky they are. The arms and legs are super extended. They look really rangy and not like massively muscular. They more look lean. Lean and hungry, which is a very cool way to kind of interpret a werewolf style thing. The shreds of skin that are still like clinging on to them do genuinely look really, really good. I really like those. It's something that could be made more nightmarish with a slight change to the paint job. Like if you put a bit more gore around the skin itself, that could add a lot of horror to, quite horror-coded miniatures. The pose of the one standing on the rock, the fact that it's got that rear leg resting as opposed to the front one, that's actually kind of cool, and I kind of wish we saw more things like that. It's not quite tactical rock. Instead, it just seems more like a natural pose that it's fallen into as opposed to a heroic look-at-me pose. I did wonder for a while why it was that the one that's got a claw raised up like it's about to strike something, why the face looks so different to the other two. And it's only kind of now that I've realised that it looks different because it's been painted differently. For reasons I'm not really sure about, they haven't painted the muzzle and the lower jaw brown. They've given him basically a black, sort of grey-black head, which the other two don't have. And in fact, I think it's because they've reversed the colour schemes. So the one that's on all fours and the one that's doing the cool pose, they seem to have like brown skin but black fur. The other one has got brown fur but black skin, which is mostly fine. But it's weird how that change of colour actually affects how the face looks quite significantly. That swap makes the one with the claw raised up look more like a bat than a wolf, which doesn't quite work as well. And I think in some ways it negatively affects the model because it makes it look significantly different to the other two. But even though these have definitely aged more than the others, even though they're not quite as timeless in terms of just when they were sculpted / put into production, they still hold up really well. There's nothing else in the Games Workshop range that's really quite like them. Like, at the end of the day, you can get more than just the Warpfire Dragon. There's a few different dragons to choose from. The gigantic Chaos Spawn, whilst very cool, there are other things that could stand in for this. There are, especially in the AOS range, quite a few sort of Nurgle models that look very, very good and are not a million miles away from this sort of thing. The Chimera is maybe its own thing and doesn't quite have an analogue currently, but a winged monstrosity, we've got plenty, There's a lot to go around. The Skin Wolves, there's not really anything else I can think of that falls into this kind of style. There's nothing else that feels like an equivalent to these. It feels like they sort of stand on their own somewhat, and that I think gives them a lot of staying power, where others might look a bit too dated. These I look at and go, well, yeah, they do look a bit older, but Games Workshop doesn't make anything else like this. And I think that's something that makes me appreciate them even more. With all that being said, though, the Warpfire Dragon is still the best. I'm sorry, but it just is. It's just a stunning miniature, and it just tops the list for me personally. Have you got any all-time classics? Any models that you just don't think have aged, or that you think are particularly outstanding for how old they are? Let me know in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the next one.